We catch up with Ripley Atkinson, Senior Market Information Analyst at Meat and Livestock Australia. Ripley, it's been a bit of a roller coaster the last few weeks, but we seem to be heading in the right direction again on price.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a fair comment to make. Things are looking good. We're seeing a return of buyer confidence to the market, and that's reflected in the way the prices are performing this week.
Yeah, look, both the indicators we tend to talk about here on this chat about our cattle and our sheep, the Eastern States Young, or EYCI, Eastern Young Cattle Indicator, and the Trade Lamb Indicator, both took a dive in the last week or two, but then they have corrected back up again on both fronts.
Yeah, that's definitely right. So we're seeing that confidence return in buyers this week, particularly, across both of those indicators you're talking about. The EYCI's jumped back up above 900 cents. It's risen 30 cents or sort of 3.5% this week to 918 cents a kilo carcass weight, and the trade lamb has actually risen even stronger, nearly double. So it's jumped up by 57 cents back to 679 cents a kilo carcass weight. So that it's been quite a vertical rise going the opposite way to what we've seen. So that confidence is returning to the market in a tentative sense, definitely.
Yeah, that trade lamb one looks like, I'm doing the rough math in my head, about 8% in a week. It's jumped back up. I mean, it had deeper falls over the previous week, but still it's a big comeback.
It is a big comeback, yeah, it definitely is. And the confidence in the buyers and recognising opportunities at the sale yards to see a chance to purchase stock is definitely there, and that increased competition, particularly in the cattle game, but that increased competition between buyers, restockers, is very much supporting what the market's done in the past 5 days.
And we're seeing that, I guess, we can talk about price, but are we seeing that in terms of volumes moving through sale yards as well?
Yeah, so like a fortnight ago, volumes were unseasonably, particularly in the cattle game, unseasonably high. It's taken probably a fortnight for that to settle out and get back to sort of seasonal averages, whereas in the lamb game, not just in the sale yards, but in general, the lamb cohort of 2021 is quite significantly bigger than what we've had in a long time as the flock rebuild sort of matured and then we've developed into a growth stage. So the supply of lamb is quite significant at the minute, particularly from that 2021 cohort that we're now still seeing through the markets into August 2022.
And that's, I guess, brings us to what on the trade lamb indicator, we would usually see it climbing around this time of year as people start thinking about spring, but that's not quite yet been seen, I guess. There's a lot to read in between the lines there.
Yeah, there's multiple market factors, drivers that are operating at the minute. There's not one that's more significant than the other, but certainly that supply, to your point, Ricky, is placing or keeping a lid on prices in the lamb game, which we traditionally expect to reach yearly highs throughout winter. But because of the significant supply that we're seeing of that 2021 lamb cohort still coming through the markets, and on top of that, processors' challenges with actually trying to get through this backlog of lambs due to absenteeism rates, availability of labour, etc., is keeping a lid on the actual price performance because the supply is so significant.
And these prices we talk about here, both of those indicators, Meat and Livestock Australia recently emphasised that across the 5-year rolling average, they're still very good prices even when they did fall, and we have seen them actually correct as we've talked about.
Very much so, yeah. And the long-term perspective on the way that the market is performing is really important to consider. When you look at how the market's operating at the minute, it's still outperforming long-term averages, particularly in the cattle game. It's still doing better than 5 and 10-year averages, and it really demonstrates the strength of the market at the minute. Yes, the market did correct, or it has corrected, or it's correcting, but it's still performing a lot stronger. It's 24% higher than the 5-year average, the EYCI is at the minute, and that is reflective across all other sort of categories as well.
And I guess to re-emphasise something we kept pointing out in the last few weeks, while there's been a lot of hysteria or commentary about foot and mouth disease, whilst we remain foot and mouth disease free here in Australia, it's important to emphasise that. And I guess a lot of the commentary has actually been focused on the fact that we've been assembling troops on the border, so to speak, to make sure it doesn't get in here.
Yeah, and that's very important for listeners and everyone to recognise. Australia hasn't had a foot and mouth disease outbreak since 1872. That was 150 years ago. We've never had lumpy skin disease in the country, and it's important for people to understand that Australia's biosecurity protocols are doing the right thing, and we need to remain aware but not alarmed. And it is not. And when you look at the markets more specifically, there's a multitude of factors that are all contributing to this. There's not one thing or the other, and we've seen that confidence return in the market at the minute, and it's reflective of the way that the prices are also performing.
Ripley Atkinson from Meat and Livestock Australia, thanks for joining us.
Always great to chat, Ricky. Thank you.